We're live, EP.002. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, Jiu Jitsu. We're going to talk about everything Jiu Jitsu, how Jiu Jitsu has impacted my life, how Jiu Jitsu has impacted my kids. We also have a special guest over here, Mr. Matt, OSS Nation, black belt. Go check him out. We talked about keeping it PG-13 and under.
I'm a chameleon. I can keep it G.
We're going to keep it G, but we are definitely going to talk about a lot of jiu-jitsu, not just the sport, but we're going to talk about the impact from character to discipline. We're going to talk about it as a self-defense because I've talked to a lot of parents about self-defense, and I've heard things like, my kid does karate, my kid does this, why do I want to go roll around on the ground? So we're going to talk about self-defense, and then I actually want to share some stories about my own kids and how it's carried over. Self-defense has actually carried over into other sports like like football, hockey, baseball, basketball, and how it just develops your character to almost like be fearless. I think it's an awesome sport, a martial art, both depending on how you approach it. But yeah, I'm obsessed. I've been doing it for about 4 years, and Mr. Matt over here, just to kind of kick it off with a little bit of a funny story. I used to train him years ago, and he'd always been talking to me about jiu-jitsu at that time. I'm like, yeah, dude, I wrestled in high school a little bit. I think I'm good. You know, I lift weights. I think I'm okay. I'm not about that. And I put him through a hard session, right? This is years ago. So then I rolled with him about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and he put me through the grinder. I was hurting, and I felt like he wanted to cardio tap me, just make me quit. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then he tells me, he goes, hey, you remember in 2017 when you made me do this sandbag? If you want to tell like your point of view.
Yeah. So Henry, first of all, great personal trainer. So if you're looking for somebody in the Temecula 951 area and you're looking for someone to like help with injury recovery or just get to the next level athletically, he's the guy I would recommend. Okay. Let's get that out of the way. But, you know, I'm beat up, grizzled jiu-jitsu guy with a bad leg at the time, you know, burrito big, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like once you start jiu-jitsu after a while, you're like great cardio because every round is a killer round, right?
Yeah.
But once you get better at jiu-jitsu, you realize like I'm not getting as tired no more. So, you know, I got married, I got bigger, you know, I'm a big boy. So this guy's just killing me in a workout. He has me on the row machine. I'm just sweating mayonnaise, right? The guy's killing me. And then he's like, okay, so he has if you've worked out with Henry, he has this thing where you like, how do you stand on one foot and you're like picking up a sandbag and you're grabbing all these balls all over the place. And I'm just like, what is going on? I see everybody else working around me, kettlebells, workouts I've done before, squats. He's like, I don't care how you pick it up. You just got to figure it out. Use your brain. Like he's making me do thinking puzzles with my brain while I'm working out. I'm just completely gassed, right? And now he's like, oh, so we're done. I'm like, oh, okay, that was cool. All right, we're good. And then he's like, now. I'm like, what do you mean now? I mean, what do you mean? We're here for an hour already. And he's like, I want you to grab the sandbags, 2 of them, and I want you to walk uphill a mile and then bring them back and walk them back. What do you call it?
It was a death carry.
The death carry.
Okay. It's a death carry.
Yeah, it is. It is. So by the time I get back, I'm just like halfway up. I'm just like, I'm about to turn around. But I did it. I finished it. I went all the way up, him all the way down, dropped them at the bay door there. And I'm just like dead. And he's like, all right, see you next week. And I'm just like, okay. And I get in the car and I'm driving and my arms are just dead. I felt like a white belt. You're like, wow, what happened? That was the craziest class ever. And I'm just dead tired. And I get home and my wife's like, how was the workout? I was like, that was a workout. That's for sure. I'm gassed. And so long story long, Henry signs up and comes and tries jiu-jitsu at Checkmat. And I'm like, oh, this is my chance. It's my chance to show him what the smoke is. You know what I mean? And I know like the guys in my gym, they go hard, especially when a new guy comes in. Right. So I'm like, James, go with Henry. So-and-so, go with Henry. I went with Henry. So-and-so. I was like blitzing him with guys. I was putting on him. And he was getting tired. And then I was like, you remember, Henry? Remember the death carry? Remember the death carry? I was like, this is my chance to get it back on you. And he started laughing.
7 years ago.
But Henry's in pretty good shape. So he was kind of like, handled it better than I handled the death carry. I'll tell you that. But then he texts me like on the way home. He's like, bro, driving home, my arms are so jello-y and tired. I was like, my grips are shot. And I was like, that's what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. So I kind of got my revenge. And now Henry has joined the team and he's one of the better up and coming lower belts, not lower belt, but a blue belt, right? So it's one of the better blue belts we have in the gym. And he gives a lot of people a lot of good work. And I could put a brown belt or a purple belt against Henry. And if you don't be careful, Henry's going to smoke you real fast. He'll get up on you. And so, yeah, he's very, very good blue belt. And he's a good addition to the squad. But, yeah, I got my revenge that day.
It was brutal. So then I remember one of my last rounds, there's this, it's a purple belt. I guess he wrestled. I forget his name. Stud, awful pressure, like suffocating pressure. And I'm just exhausted. Right. And one of the things that I refuse to do, obviously jiu-jitsu is like an ego thing, right? Like your ego is why you want to win. Your ego also says, hey, I got to keep in check. I got to learn. I got to know when to tap. But there's one thing I will not tap to. And this is just me. I tap to this as a white belt a lot, and I just refuse. You will not get me to tap on pressure. You will not get me to tap on pressure. So he puts this guy on me and has me do. This guy's suffocating. He suffocates me all the time, and he makes.
Steve, I think you're talking about Steve.
Steve, yes,
I think you're talking about Steve. Yep, Steve's very good.
And he makes me do an 8-minute round with him. He goes, "We're gonna go a little longer." He changes the clock, makes me go 8 minutes. I'm already like exhausted. And I remember just going through it. I was like, I know what he's doing. I know what he's doing. He's trying to get me to quit.
It was a gang initiation. Is what it was. We were jumping you in.
Oh man, it was brutal. It was brutal, but I loved it. You know, it's a great sport. I remember, so kind of going back. So he talked to me about jiu-jitsu. I've been knowing about jiu-jitsu for a very long time. Diehard UFC fan. So I've been following it since like the Tito Ortiz, Randy Couture days. And you know, I wrestled in high school. I sucked. We'll talk about that because one of my personal pet peeves is when people say, "Oh, you wrestle, that's why you're good." I played basketball my whole life, and I feel that's why I'm good at moving. Besides the fact, so I remember my kids; they started doing jiu-jitsu at Carlson Gracie. Awesome kid program. I think all kid programs, jiu-jitsu programs are awesome, but my kids were doing that. And I remember him, the professor being like, "Hey, you want to try it out?" And I'm just like, last time I tried it was 3 years prior to that. I did like the little trial and then I blew my knee. Literally, I think on the second day, I blew my knee. I blew my, not blew it. It was just a meniscus. It was a meniscus injury. So then I was like, you know what? I'll deal with it. Came back the next week. Other knee. So I said, yeah, jiu-jitsu is not for me. So at the time, I think I was like 30 years old. So then fast forward 3 years, I'm 33 now. And the professor goes, well, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 33. And I'm just thinking like my last experience when I was younger, I blew both my knees, whatever. I'm watching my kids. I don't want to be that dad. I'm seeing all these memes about, you know, dads that don't do jiu-jitsu, but their kids do. It doesn't help that he posts up a meme like every day making fun of those guys. So I jumped into class and this girl, I think she was, if I'm guessing 16, 17 years old, she came up to me, asked me to roll. And I'm thinking like, man, I don't really want to roll with the girl. Like I have no experience at this time. I'm like fresh white belt, but I have enough like intuition to be like, I'm not going to go hard on a girl. So I'm like taking it easy, whatever that means. And halfway through the roll, she looks at me. She goes, "Hey, is it cool if like you go harder on me?" And I was like, okay. She goes, yeah. Like she goes, I'm not like a big fan of jiu-jitsu, but the reality is if someone attacks me in real life, they're probably going to be a male and they're not going to be my size. She was, I'm guessing, 125 pounds soaking wet. So I was like, cool. So I tried to go harder on her. Within like 2.3 seconds, I'm being swept. And sweeping, if you don't know, it's when the bottom person ends up on top. So I'm on top of her. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, she flipped me over. And I'm like, okay, this is embarrassing. So then she gets me in side control. And I'm, at the time, I'm a trainer. I've been doing it for a while. I'm pretty strong. She felt like she was like a magnet on me. Like, she was stuck to me. I could not get her off of me. And I remember just my lungs just dying. She was suffocating me where I needed to take a break. Remember I said I don't tap to pressure? I asked her if I can, I just need to take a break. I walked outside because I felt like throwing up. I had this 125-pound, 17-year-old girl suffocating me. So you could imagine my ego. I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. So the very next roll, I had another kid come up to me. He's an orange belt. At the time, I knew nothing about colors. So I'm like, what the heck is an orange belt? And I was like, all right. And he came at me hard. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to let this kid get me. Granted, I'm already feeling like throwing up. And then he introduced me to something called a wrist lock.
I don't like those guys, dude. What are orange belts doing wrist locks for? That's frowned upon.
He wrist locked me. And I remember afterwards, I was talking to Professor Tom from Carlson Gracie. And I was like, all right, I got suffocated in side control from a girl who swept me and threw me. And then I had some other little kid. I'm guessing he's 140 pounds soaking wet, not much bigger than the girl. And he wrist locked me and I tapped. I'm just like, what the heck? And then same thing, he got on top of me and I could not figure out how to get him off of me. And I was just like, this is a superpower. And I started jiu-jitsu probably a month after my kids. And I was like, man, I need to learn this superpower. My kids need to learn this superpower. But that was my initiation, so I was there for some years and my kids, they did some competitions and I think it's awesome. But
I think all women should learn jiu-jitsu, especially in the landscape of the way the world is now. Right. But I've had women in my class be discouraged, like an upper belt girl. She's purple belt. Right. And she's come up to me and sat next to me on the wall and been down on herself. And I'm like, what's going on? Because she was just rolling with a fresh white belt, spazzy white belt, 220 plus man. And she's like 140 pounds. And she's discouraged because she didn't sub the guy. Right. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I couldn't get to my stuff. He's a white belt and I couldn't. And I had to put her aside and be like, genders matter in sports. People can say they don't, and you want the woman to fight the man, and they matter in almost every sport. I was like, that is a 200 plus pound man. You are 140 pounds. Did he sub you? No, he said. Did he get to a dominant position on you? No. I was like, you won. I was like, jiu-jitsu isn't always about killing or strangling or choking. It's about survival.
Yeah.
A fresh guy who doesn't know anything. This is the guy you're going to see outside of Walmart in a parking lot, right? This guy came at you and he was trying to beat you and he could not advance on you and he could not get you and he could not sub you and you survive. I was like, that is the perk of jiu-jitsu. That is the benefits of jiu-jitsu. You showed defense and you did not get beat. So you should reward yourself because W's look different for different people. Whether it's you're really old and a young guy's coming at you, you're a female and a male's coming at you, W's look different. So I was like, that's jiu-jitsu. You did a great job. You should be happy with yourself. I feel like sometimes, especially the higher belts, they get so down on themselves and they can't get the kill or the sub.
Yeah.
But by showing that's how you win. Sometimes I'll have the girls in my class rolling in a 6-minute round and I'll go up to them and I'll be like, Christina, I'll be like, 4 minutes till the cops come. There's 4 minutes on a timer.
That's good.
So I'm like, you're not we're trying to survive here. We're not trying to, I don't want you to shoot up a submission, miss it, and then you're in a bad position. Position over submission. Stay safe. 4 minutes till the cops get here. They're on their way. Can you stay alive? And that's kind of what I tell to my girls. Or, even a smaller and older man, like, hey, help's on its way. Can you survive for the 4 minutes? Can you stay safe? Can you keep your neck tucked? Can you protect yourself? So I think jiu-jitsu benefits everybody, and hopefully, like my kids, I'm gonna have my kids do jiu-jitsu. My daughter started. I started her a little later at 7 because, my wife not a huge proponent on jiu-jitsu. She sees how beat up I get. She's not huge on it, and I started her at 7 because I said if I only got a 3-year window, I want her to retain. I think if you start them way young, they're gonna grow to be. She could get burnt out early, but I don't like jiu-jitsu no more. And then my wife will be, all right, it's over, no more jiu-jitsu. And then I'm like, I was like, I want all my kids to get to at least blue belt, because martial arts, even though jiu-jitsu is a sport, it's more than a sport. Jiu-jitsu is something you could carry the rest of your life. Like, your kid will always have that scissor sweep, will always be in his back pocket, even at 40.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Getting good at sports, getting good at hockey, football, as good as sports are with team building and learning to conquer an obstacle, or, whatever sports can bring to you, learning physical contact, all that. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is a skill that can resonate with you for a life. And I want my daughter to be at least a blue belt. And whether if she quits, she burns out 7 to 9, she doesn't want to do it no more. You're coming back at 12. You're going to 15. You're going to get your blue belt. You have to have your blue belt in my house. Once you get your blue belt, you can do whatever. Hopefully she goes beyond that. But I want my kids to be ready, because God forbid, the way this world is, the way men are being developed, in my opinion, without father figures, and the way they're treating women in the streets, and how like that's the man taking care of the woman, that is completely like non-existent. Guys don't open doors for women no more. They don't care. They put hands on women now. The way that is, it's good for your kid to have the discipline to defend herself, or even my son to know what it's like to be bullied on the mat and be crushed and be smashed. So, hey, it's not cool to be that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for all kids and even females to do jiu-jitsu.
To kind of piggyback on that, one of the things that I learned kind of by accident, because my kids, they've done every sport, right? And they've had a lot of success with every sport they do. Like we just won a championship in hockey yesterday. So that was pretty cool.
Mexicans playing hockey over here. This is California. We got Mexicans playing hockey.
Yeah.
Have you ever been a Mexican in a national hockey league?
Not that I know of.
Or that could be. Oh yeah, that. I know we got some brothers in there.
The brown market. Let's do it. No, but one of the cool things I want to point out about jiu-jitsu and how it's kind of carried over to other sports is, so my middle son, he's 7 years old, right? And he led the entire league in points and assists, right? So he had a lot of goals. He had 20-something goals. And my other son as well, my oldest, my son is 7, and he led the league as a 10U player. And granted, I'm short, mom's short. So you can imagine he's like 7-year-old, but he's not a tall 7-year-old. He's a short 7-year-old leading the league, the 10U league. So that's, for kids, 3 years is dog years, right? And I correlate that back to jiu-jitsu, because I remember one of my son, Jackson, his first tournaments that he ever did, the kids all look huge. And I remember my wife and me like having like anxiety. We're like, oh dude, like these kids are huge. And he was the smallest out of his entire bracket. Like they just looked like they were older, taller, bigger, even though it's the same weight. I don't know. I was like, man, like how did they make weight? Besides the fact. So mom and dad, first jiu-jitsu tournament, were very nervous. He ends up doing well. And then I think he ended up being third. He lost one and then he was cool with it. He didn't cry. And I saw a lot of other kids in other sports, because I've been working with athletes for a long time. They lose the championship game. They lose a regular game. They lose a call and they're crying. 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, literally crying because the referee didn't call a foul on them, And I noticed that a lot of the jiu-jitsu kids, when they lose, they are like, whatever. So if you ask my son, I was like, why did that kid beat you? He'll always say, oh, he's just better than me. And we know this as adults, right? Like if someone beats you, they were the better person. Maybe not in general, but that day they were better. So as an adult, we can admit that. But kids, they don't have that development. So to them, it's like the end of the world if they lose, right?
Because they've never been in a real life situation where they've lost.
Correct. And this is the difference of jiu-jitsu of any sport I've ever seen. Jiu-jitsu is the only sport I've seen where you learn how to lose a lot before you ever learn how to win. So my son was used to losing in practice all the time, right? He's getting beat because everything's, the belt system in jiu-jitsu means something, right? It really does. I've seen people dominate me, and then I see that same person go get dominated. It's like I'm getting dominated by a purple belt, and then all of a sudden I see this black belt toying with the guy that just toyed with me. So these kids are learning how to lose in practice. They're being tapped because they know, hey, when in doubt, just do a little quick tap and it's over. So what I found that jiu-jitsu did for my kids is it taught them how to lose, but it also taught them how to win. So there's a lot of respect there. So then when they go to other sports, basketball, oh my God, these kids were taller than me. We had a kid on our team who was like 5'11", 10U. And Jackson's the smallest kid, but he's out there getting after it. And I'm just like, he's used to going against bigger people. He's used to doing this and he's confident. So if you look at his body language, my kid's body language, I'm trying not to be biased here because they're my own kids, but if you look at body language of kids, he's small and he looks chill. My 7-year-old playing hockey, he was so small, but he looked very relaxed, very confident, getting after it. And if they make a mistake, it's almost like it's not a big deal. It's like, oh, I just had to tap and reset. So I found that with jiu-jitsu, compared to other sports, basketball, football, hockey, any other sport, yeah, you're having team building, but you could have a bad game and your team still win. You can have a great game and your team still lose. Jiu-jitsu, you win, you won. You lost. If you lose, you lost. So it teaches them like this, like the character building that I've seen. It's awesome. And that's not just for kids. That's even for me. Like if someone taps me out, you can ask Matt, you can ask anybody. I'm giving them kudos right away. I'm like, dude, that was a sick armbar. What did I do wrong? Why am I getting caught in that? I asked him a couple weeks ago. I was getting caught in a lot of head and arm chokes. Darce. There's this guy, purple belt. Okay. Yeah. He caught me like 2-3 times. And
you say a move, I already know who you're talking about.
He already knew who I was talking
everybody
about.
has a style. So the thing about jiu-jitsu is everybody has a style. So it's kind of like, what's your game? So like, that's why jiu-jitsu is so cool, because I play half, I play lasso, I play this, I do darces. Everybody has a certain way to victory. So it's like you're trying to counter, like, well, I know the counter to that is being good at this. So like, it's like a chess game. So that's why I know who he's talking about just off the move.
Okay. But like I gave him his kudos. I was like, dude, that's super sick. And if you ask anybody I roll with, I trained. So I initially started training at Carlson Gracie. I trained there for 3.5 years or so. I've been training at Checkmat for about maybe 6 months now. But if you ask any of my training partners, they'll tell you, like, if they catch me, I'm not upset. I'm not like, I'm going to give them their kudos. I'm going to give them their flowers. And then I'm like, all right, where did I mess up? Like, so I asked him, I was like, dude, how do I defend against this Darce? Like, this guy's like doing it at will, catching me in a Darce. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. It's just like, there's so much growth in there.
I think the bunny rabbit philosophy is something I've talked about in my podcast. The bunny rabbit philosophy is good for life and it's good for anything, but jiu-jitsu and wrestling, the mano-a-mano sports, you can really implement it. What I mean by bunny rabbit is when you go to the track, you go to the greyhound race, they have that fake rabbit that goes around the track, and that's what the dogs are chasing. Yeah. Everybody has a bunny rabbit that they want to be like, whether it's in life, whether it's in any situation. Like, man, that's the guy I want to. If I could just be this guy, that guy purple belt who just mangled me, if I could just be that good, I'll be. That's my bunny rabbit in class. And every day you'll get some, he beat you, but your object is to catch your rabbit. Yeah. Everybody's chasing their rabbit. Like, even in the podcast space, you'll be like, man, that podcast is good. We could just get our podcast to that level. That's your bunny rabbit. Doesn't matter what it is. Your bunny rabbit could be the next belt. Your bunny rabbit could be a belt, whatever. But like everybody finds a bunny rabbit. And I think traditional sports, team sports, that's the one thing that kids don't get when they rather to mono and mono sports like wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's hard to find that bunny rabbit. You can see a player, well, that kid's really good.
Yeah.
I could be, but you never, I don't see him the rest of the season. So you never get to test your skills against him again until maybe next year. Right?
Yeah.
But in jiu-jitsu, oh, he beat me. Oh, he beat me. Oh, he beat me again. Oh, he beat me, but he didn't tap me. Oh, he didn't pass my guard. And every day you're like catching your rabbit. And once you catch a rabbit, find a new one.
Yeah.
Or maybe your rabbit is so high that you'll never catch him. But look what you're passing on the way up. So I think, like you were saying, the one-on-one sports teaches you how to lose, teaches you how to win. And no matter what happens, you can be like, it ain't as bad as being neon bellied in front of my mom and dad,
Yeah.
and losing,
Yeah.
tapping in front of your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Some new, what's the biggest problem I have is I tell these white belt men who come into my class and they go to their first tournament and I tell them, don't bring your wife, don't bring your kids. I was like, just come with the team, your first tournament. I know you want to write grandma and mom and everybody.
Yeah.
Don't, because just lose in front of us. No pressure. Nobody wants to fall in front of their wife.
Yeah.
Especially a white belt, because she's like, man, you don't know nothing. That guy doesn't know nothing. He beat you. Like at black belt, it's fine. I lose to another black belt. Like, well, they're both. He's black belt though. Like that guy's just a better black belt. White belt, you have no, like, you're in trouble. So go to a tournament with the people you lose in front of every day, and like build your confidence, and then like just post the highlights. You know what I mean? That's what you should do. Don't. But like jiu-jitsu teaches kids that. They teach them how to lose, teaches them how to fail. And I think that's a good thing for anything in life, is to be, a good loser. Some people, like, if you find a good loser, I'll show you a loser. I think that's the dumbest quote ever, because being a good loser teaches you how to overcome. And as long as you can teach your kids not to quit on a bad day.
Yeah.
Like, we don't quit on a bad day.
Yeah.
My daughter didn't want to do soccer. She had a bad game. I was like, well, you're not quitting on a bad day. Yeah. You score 2 goals in a game, and then you tell me you want to play no more? All right. That's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of losing, I remember I was listening to a podcast with Hickson Gracie, and he was telling the story of like his first tournament when he was a kid. I think he said he was, 7, 8 years old. He was a kid, right? And his dad, invented jiu-jitsu, right? Or his grandpa, or I don't know the exact, I'm sure you know who. But besides the fact, he said, I think it was Helio Gracie. That was his dad, right? So Helio told Hickson Gracie on his first tournament, there's all this pressure, like everybody in my family's a killer. And he told his son, he said, hey, listen, if you win this tournament, if you win and you get first place, if you win, I'm going to give you a prize. If you lose, I'll give you 2 prizes. And I thought it was the most awesome thing ever, because pretty much what he said is, it's okay to lose. I'm giving you the freedom to just go out there and have a good time, do your best, and whatever happens, happens. So I actually stole that quote, and I told that to my son. And I remember like his first tournament, he lost, and he was just cool about it. And then soon after that, he started winning. But he never really reacted to losing, to the point where my middle son, one time came up to me and he goes, Dad, I didn't even cry. I was like, what happened? And he goes, oh, he was just better than me. And he was just saying it as a matter of fact. And I'm just like, and my kid's super competitive, but it didn't faze him. And then I remember this year I put my oldest in basketball. Oh man, I'm torn with basketball, because I grew up obsessed with basketball. However, I'm 5'7". You better be freaking good. So my kids are like, Dad, can we play basketball? And I'm just like, because I think I'm okay. I think I'm decent. I think I'm better at basketball than I am at jiu-jitsu. That's God honest truth. You could ask some of my friends growing up. And I was like, I'm not going to tell him no. So we go to his first, I think it was a practice, giants. It's like they got the tallest kids in Temecula Murrieta Valley. And I'm just like, I was like, wait a second, that kid looks like he has a shadow coming in. He's 10 years old. There's no freaking way. It was 10 to 12. And my son is 10 and he's on the short side. And I remember I was like, man, because I could tell he was a little nervous. And then I thought of jiu-jitsu. I said, hey, Jackson, I want to tell you a little secret. I said, they're not allowed to choke you out. They're not allowed to like strangle you. They can't grab your arm and try to armbar you. The worst thing that can happen is they can score a point on you. And he looked at me. He started cracking up. He goes, I was like, you think you're going to be okay if they score a basket, put that ball in that hoop on you? And immediately it's like he got the clearance to be like, it's okay if you go mess up. It's okay if they're bigger. And then my son was really bad at basketball.
Yeah.
But because he had that freedom, by the end of the year, by the end of the season, he looked like completely different. He could dribble. He was running, sprinting up and down court, did whatever the coach asked him to do. But just having that freedom to be like, listen, like you're used to people trying to do a knee on belly on you. You're used to people on your back trying to strangle you. I was like, in basketball, literally all they can do is throw a ball in a hoop and then they talk smack.
Yeah.
Like, how much pressure is that? And he started laughing because he goes, oh, I was like, and then I joked with him. I was like, I don't want to see you trying to choke people. All right. I don't want to see you going for the arm bar. This is basketball. This isn't jiu-jitsu. Just kind of trying to lighten the mood. And then after that, like his shoulders relaxed and he was out there and having a good time. And I'm just like, man, you got to see some of the film. I'll post some of it on Instagram, but he's so small and you would think he was the biggest guy there. And once again, I'm going to credit that to jiu-jitsu. He's used to going against big kids. He's used to getting subbed. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, sometimes they're equals. But the psyche, I'm adamant that I think every kid should do some form of martial art. So my question to you is self-defense, bullying. That is a big deal. Bullying is huge. You go on YouTube and you see these bullies, everyone has a cell phone now. What do you say to people who say, hey, my kid's doing boxing, my kid's doing, Krav Maga, there's jiu-jitsu, my kid wrestles, like there's a lot of competing martial arts. Us obviously being in jiu-jitsu, you've been in the space way longer than me. What do you say to these parents that know nothing? They're like, what's a knee on belly? You're talking about controlling position. I don't even know what he's talking about. What do you tell these parents that have no clue what jiu-jitsu is? And like, why should their kid do jiu-jitsu compared to karate?
First, I want to say is I think all martial arts are better than not knowing anything. Okay. So even though I'm a strong proponent for ground fighting because 90% of fights hit the deck, whether you're tripping over a curb or someone grabs you by your backpack and pulls you on the ground, no fight stays standing unless it's just boxing or it's sanctioned to stand. You even look into professional boxing, what happens? They're always clinching and the ref has to break it up. Well, what happens if the ref didn't break it up? Someone's throwing that guy to the ground. Yeah. The reason the ref does that because they knows as a human, we want to grapple just like they did in the gladiator days and they want to take it to the ground. So I think all fight start from the ground up. When you start from the ground up and you're fighting, I'm not afraid to throw my hands now because go ahead, take me down. I can throw big punches and you can grab me too. I want to be on the ground. But once you get someone comfortable with being fighting on the ground, they have freedom to kick. Oh, you caught my leg and we hit the ground? Cool. I like it down here. You know what I mean? Like once you give someone confidence, and the most scariest part is being on the bottom where the bully's pounding on you. Once you get someone comfortable there, opens up freedom for everything. So, but I think all martial arts are great for discipline, for learning how to kick, learning how to strike. But jiu-jitsu is the answer for the worst thing that can happen in any other art. Yeah. Maybe besides wrestling is hitting the ground. That's what we don't want. Hitting the ground. What are we going to do when we hit the ground? Now, some people will be like, multiple opponents. What are you going to do about multiple opponents? Or you wouldn't want to take someone down when their friends would just kick you in the head. Yeah. That's what we're going to get. Yeah. We're not going to go to we're going to look to get away. I think jiu-jitsu, what people don't understand is jiu-jitsu is so hard on you as when you first start, whether you're a kid or an adult, you realize how sucky fighting is. You're going to look for a way not to fight.
Yeah.
And I think jiu-jitsu teaches you and I think all martial arts do this because you realize, man, this kind of hurts. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to fight. Jiu-jitsu kids have such a good demeanor that they will look for any reason not to fight. And that's just taught. There are no bullies that jiu-jitsu. I can't say there are none because I'm sure there are some that use jiu-jitsu for evil, right?
Yeah.
But normally I would say there are no, because it weeds it out. Jiu-jitsu weeds out the douchebags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It does.
Yeah, it does.
There's none. You're not gonna get that. If you're in the game long enough, you're gonna realize, like, okay, respect. I know what that feels like. I would never do that to somebody. If someone did that to me, I would know how to do it, and I could control, and I could take you down, and I could wait for the teacher to come.
Yeah.
And there's no damage.
Yeah.
Like, if my son or my daughter ever got in a fight, and I go, gotta come pick up your kid. If the other kid had a broken arm or something like that, I'd be like, well, okay. But if I came and picked her up and the other kid had no damage, and my daughter or son were just top mount, scarf hold, and waiting for a teacher to come there and just holding the kid down, the kid couldn't move, and then got broken up, I'd be like, that's what would make me proud. Learning how to use it and not be violent with it, because it is such a good skill. What do you say, Henry? We both coach youth, okay? Helicopter parents. Parents that coach from the sidelines when you're trying to show. Parents that are really get so mad at their kids after a failed sporting event that a bad coach, whether it's your parent or a coach itself, can really cripple the drive of an athlete.
Yeah.
What do you say about helicopter parents?
I think it's a push-pull because, as a parent, there's times where, I'll see my kids, we have to recognize when they need that push, maybe they're being a little lazy, maybe they're not focusing, they're, looking at squirrels. My kids have been guilty of that. One of my kids got hit with the baseball one time. The coach goes, "Hey, I'm going to hit the ball to you, Jameson." I think he's 5 years old at the time, 6 years old. Ball comes, boom, hits him on the head. He runs off the field crying. And we go, "What happened?" He goes, "He was looking at an airplane." So that's a situation where, hey, Jameson, you got to pay attention, listen with your eyes, listen with your ears. That's me pushing them softly. We got to understand how much push, right? But we also got to learn when to pull back. We got to learn when to pull back. And it's tough because as adults, we're competitive. I'm of the generation, even now, I play to win. I don't like this BS of we're playing to have fun. Winning
Everybody
is
gets
fun.
a trophy.
Yeah, I play to win, but I'm an adult and you're an adult. I don't go to work with my business and let's say I'm training an athlete. I'm not going to just try my best. No, I'm training to make him the best. So when I have an athlete in front of me, I'm going to make him the best. So that's my mindset. But however, if it's a 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, they lose a tournament, big deal, grow from it. I think learning how to pull back and learning how to say the right things. I have to remind myself of this because I have to turn it off. I'm at the game yesterday and, I get excited. I'm a fan. I'm not a coach at the game. I'm a fan and I'm yelling. And my wife looks at me I got to tone it down a little bit. And I'm just getting excited, but we have to be mindful of that. If you're a parent that's ultra competitive, I know I am, I'm super competitive. I hate losing. I really do. However, I'm smart enough as an adult to be able to reframe a loss and be like, he caught me in a darce. I need to go figure out the solution to how to not let this happen again. Right. So I'm competitive, but I'm also not naive. With a child, we got to know, when do they need a push? When do we have to pull back? And I think a lot of parents, they take it too serious. And there was a strength coach. His name's Joe Ken. Cam Newton?
Yep.
He was Cam Newton's strength coach. So he was the strength coach of the year in the NFL and in college. And I remember listening to one of his lectures, and he was talking about scouting. And he goes, no recruit is ever going to come up to you and be like, hey, what was your son doing when he was 10 in the kids World Series? Like, they don't care. No college coach, not even a high school coach. They don't care what your kid did when he was 8, when he was 9. So I feel like before puberty, it's about learning how to lose. It's about development, growing physically, growing emotionally. So as a parent, we gotta encourage that. But then we also got to know, like, okay, now it's time to learn how to win. So I feel like as parents, we train kids and we push them and we get upset and we don't, like, dude, he's 8. Like, how, like, I don't want to ruin his love for the sport because I don't want the kid to ever think he's going to do bad. So I'll give you a story. My son, Jameson, he's pretty good with hockey. He clicked. He's the one that's 7 years old, did well in 10U. And I remember he did a tournament, and this was this summer with a travel hockey. Is that what you call it?
I don't know.
A travel hockey team. He got invited to like a 2-day tournament, right? And these kids were freaking good. Like, the coach goes, every kid who's there is like your kid, but if not better. And me, I'm like, I hadn't seen my kid lose. Like, he does well. And, I'm like, my kid's going to do good. Being inside, I'm thinking, I'm just telling you what I'm thinking. I didn't say it, but I'm thinking it. I'm like, he'll be fine. My kid looked like the worst kid out there. Like, these kids have been playing since they're young and their team got demolished, like 8-0 or something like that. In hockey, that's not good. So he comes off and he's like crying, and he's always competitive. And I was like, what's going on, dude? And he thought that I was going to be upset that he lost for a split second. So I was like, hey, Jamie, it's not a big deal. These kids are good. Let's learn from it. What could we do better? And I had to, let him know. So sometimes they just need that. Parents, we got to give the kids the reinforcement.
And he witnessed his bunny rabbit.
The bunny rabbit. There you go.
He witnessed it right there.
I said,
like,
look at how these kids
are my
skate.
age, and that's where I need to be.
Yeah. He was literally at the bottom. And then now he tells me, this is before he's playing 10U. He goes, Dad, I want to play 10U with my brother because his brother's 10 years old. They could be on the same team. And I'm just like, I wasn't about it. I didn't want it. Cause I was like, dude, you're small for 7. I don't want him to get hurt as a parent. Right. But that experience of him losing and my reaction and saying, like, listen, it's not a big deal. They're faster. They have more experience. That's all that means. I was like, I'm not mad at you. I was like, I'm going to love you the same, no matter what the outcome is. So that push pull, I think it's important. You don't want to pull away so much that you never push, because that's also bad. I know parents that aren't supportive. I've seen both extremes.
A comfort zone is a wonderful thing, but nothing grows there. And a bad parent can ruin a kid's comfort zone. If you're the parent that's on the sidelines always yelling at your kid, we were at about a year ago, we were at my little nephew Colton's wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Right. And I went outside and I saw this dad just lighting his son up for losing. How dare you? You're wasting my money. We drove all the way out here and you're going to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, geez, dude. Look, first of all, you look like a tool doing that to a little kid. Secondly, I get why you could be upset and frustrated that maybe your kid didn't live up to the expectations that you had for him at that meet, right? Yeah. But by getting on your kid, all you've done is made him so scared to expand his game at a young age that he won't grow. Now your kids, I'm not going to shoot the arm bar because if I miss it and I lose, my dad's going to be mad. Now your kid never gets good at arm bars because he's afraid to go for it. Kids should be going for it and failing and figuring out, why did I fail?
Yeah.
If you take away why did I fail, and now your kid's so scared of the dad being mad or getting yelled at on the way home that they're afraid to evolve as athletes, you are going to nerf them. Yeah. And they will never grow. I sometimes watch my daughter and I'm like, man, she's not doing what I know she can do. Yeah. Like, she's like not paying attention. She's not playing hard. And I think every parent has that. I just want to talk to her again. Why do this? Why aren't you doing that? You want to, because you're like, come on. Like, they go for it. Like, but they don't. 24-hour rule. 24-hour rule. I will not talk about the game. If they bring up the game, okay, we'll talk about it. But I don't talk about it for 24 hours. Because maybe I'm a little mad. Just being honest. Maybe she's upset. Yeah. We don't talk about it. And maybe tomorrow, I'll be like, hey, so in that one play yesterday, what do you think? Yeah. Give yourself some time to relax and, cool down. Don't just because you can really, what you say and how you treat your kids in sports can really make them want to do it or make them not want to do it.
Yeah.
And then one day you're going to be a grandparent.
Yeah.
And I know people who don't let their grandparents come to games because they know how their grandpa was to them. Do you want that to be you? I don't.
No, I want to add in, for anyone that listened to the first podcast when we were talking about pressures being put on a kid and as a parent, what we can do better. This is great stuff right here. So if you listen to the first episode and you're wondering to get deeper in it, listen to this. Because it is such a huge part. And I think as parents, you got to think about, why are you having your kids play sport? Why are you putting your own money into your kid playing that sport? It's not for them to win so that way you can gloat about your kid. It's not for your own benefit. It's so your kid can grow as a human being. And so when you see those parents on the sideline and they start saying, I paid all this money to do this, it's like, well, you shouldn't be paying the money so your kid can win. And I think you made a great point. Everyone's win is different. It's not winning the actual basketball game to get a better record. It's, did you win and did you learn the lesson of losing?
Yeah.
Did you learn what you needed to learn when you lost? Okay, I got this I can work on. I got this I can work on. I think what you do is great as a parent. And even taking the time. I don't know, my mom would even say the 48-hour rule sometimes. Like anytime I got mad in a relationship or something like that, and I go to my mom and be like, oh, I'm frustrated. She'd be like, 48 hours. Relax for 48 hours. Get your mind back up. Let yourself think about it. Digest, because you need those hormones and all those things that are pumped up right now going, adrenaline to relax. And then 48 hours later, think about it. And you're probably not going to be thinking the same way you did back then. And so, but yeah, for parents, it's what's your intentions? Your intention shouldn't be to win. It should be to actually learn from the loss. You're not going there, not wasting your time, because at the end of the day, if you think you wasted your time because your kid lost, no, if anything, you got more out of it because now your kid learned a valuable lesson within losing. Yeah. And there's certain things within it. And I had a couple of notes I took during this. I think what makes you guys great trainers and great friends, actually, because I remember Henry was teaching me this as a personal trainer. He was always saying everyone's skill looks different. And then you come in today saying everyone's win looks different, which can both be correlated into his skill is the win. And so I thought that was actually a really cool thing, in case no one's ever worked out with Henry and all. Henry has the same kind of mindset. And I think that's what makes you guys really great trainers and really successful in what you guys do, is your ability to understand not everyone's going to be at the same end goal, and understand not everyone's at the same starting point, and everyone looks different of where they need to be. And for you, when you said the girl, it's like, yeah, did you win the Jiu Jitsu match? No, technically you didn't sub them out, but you won in the sense of, if you were in a real life scenario, you got out of it. Henry, for example, I've been shadowing him. He's worked with some older guys, and they're focusing on learning how to fall, and just falling. But for them, that's their skill, and that's a win for them. If I can fall one day, because obviously the plan never happens, but if it does happen and I do properly perform it, that's his win. So I think that's what, if there's anyone watching, coaches, parents, and trainers, that's a really great lens to have going forward with anything, your kids and just people you train and clients. Having that understanding of everyone's win is always going to look different. Never expect the same outcome. And then I also want to ask, this is more about jiu-jitsu, and you guys can kind of answer this whenever. I'm a weak trial guy. I know a lot. I'm a pretty experienced guy. But if I wasn't so experienced, where would you recommend I'd start, in the sense of, as a new person coming in, what should I be focused on, and where should my mindset kind of be when I'm coming in?
You want the blue belt answer or the black belt? I'll go blue belt first and we'll go black belt. Okay. Because blue belt answer, if I can go back and, do things a little different as a new white belt, I would focus 90% of my effort on defense. 90%. Someone, one of the guys that was teaching is a guy named Jeff. He taught me a lot about defense. All he did was show me defense. And when you first go into a jiu-jitsu studio, like even me, I'm on YouTube, like I want to learn how to do this cool armbar. I want to learn this new takedown. I want to learn this offense. And self-defense is self-defense. It's not called self-offense. It's self-defense. And I feel like there's a lot, I put a lot of effort in the first, I don't know, 6 months to a year. My first year, I was trying to get people, right? And it never worked out for me. And then because I was trying to be offensive minded, once they put me in a bad spot, I would like panic and I didn't know what to do. And, you know, I got hurt probably from going too aggressive. And then my second and my third year, I said, I want to be that guy. Like maybe that black belt wrecks me, that brown belt wrecks me, but you can't tap me. I want my defense. So I started putting myself in all the positions I didn't want to be in, playing off my back. Like that is foreign to anybody. Like I grew up fighting a lot. I grew up in Riverside. I grew up in bad neighborhoods. So I fought all the time, right? So being on top of someone is very innate, right? It's very natural. Playing off my back and then having the small wrestling pedigree that I had. Like if your shoulders touch the ground, match over. So that was a little bit instilled into me. I remember the professor's like, you got to learn how to play off your back, learn how to get someone bigger off of you. So I started being defensive minded and saying, okay, I'm going to put myself in side control. I'm going to put myself, let someone take my back. I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to do pull guard. Like I'm going to do all these things that I don't like. And so being more defensive minded, it took me about my first year, maybe year and a half to even get that. And when I started becoming defensive minded, I remember I got to a point where I felt comfortable learning offense because I knew that if something went wrong, I can always default back to my defense. Like, oh, I went for this arm bar and they sweat me and now I'm in side control. I want my brain to be like, oh, we've been here before. We know what to do. Versus I feel a lot of me, and I feel like a lot of white belts when they first started, they're like, I want to learn the move of the day. I want to learn more tools, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm still obsessed with learning new moves, but I'm like, if I get in a fight, I'm not trying to hurt somebody. I want to learn, number one, how to protect myself. And I feel like with new people, I wish that was told to me in like plain English. It was kind of told indirectly, but I wish someone would have sat me down and be like, listen, have the best defense ever. And then let the offense come to you. So that's my point of view. That's a blue belt answer.
I think jiu-jitsu, it's a game within a game. Okay. So when you first start, and I still to this day, it's a game within a game, and that never changes. We all know that what we want to do with jiu-jitsu. We want to sub the guy. We want the highlight. We want all that. But I, as a white belt, I was a white belt for 5 years.
Ooh.
Okay. So we're not going to get into that. But I was a white belt for 5 years. Okay. Now I'm like 16 years in. I would give myself challenges to the day. I'd be like, look it, I've just started. I'm gassing. I'm dying. I'm having to sit out rounds because I'm, gassed. Today's my challenge is I am not going to that wall. Whether I lose all 5 rounds, my personal goal is I'm not going to the wall. Okay, challenge accepted, conquered. Today, I am not subbing more than 5 times. So like, oh man, the first guy got me 3 times. I only got 2 left or I fail. So always give yourself a game within a game. And if you do that when you first start, next thing you know, you start getting better. Oh, I'm not going to get tapped out. By not getting tapped out 5 times a day, what gets better? Defense.
Yeah.
Because you're mindful of not getting tapped. That's your game. Yeah. Winning is not your game. If that happens, cool. If I hit a home run, great. I'm just trying to get on base. Yeah. So you've created the game within a game. So that's what I like to do. I like to try to create little games. So when I first started, I think that's a good thing to know. Just like life, everything is like tying your shoes. And jiu-jitsu is no different. When we first start jiu-jitsu, we're 5-year-olds. We don't even know how to tie our shoes. We have mom. First day, you don't know how to tie your belt. Professor ties it for you. It's a very ego strike to you. You don't know how to tie your belt. So it's like, I got you, bro. You know how many grown men's belts I've tied for? A lot. Okay. So it's like, we don't know how to tie our shoes. We know the concept. Like, okay, I got to choke this guy. So you're like, I know I got to 2 laces here. I got to under the bridge and pull it through, bunny ears around through the thing. Oh, missed it. I did all the jiu-jitsu, missed the arm. Oh, missed it, didn't get it. But the more and more you do, the more and more you do anything in life. Now, I can just armbar. Boom, it's just reaction now. Boom, there it all. You give me an arm, there, take it. Give me a wrist lock. That's what I'm trying to. You're giving, because I've done it so many times that like it's just repetition. And that's anything in life. Whether it's a religion thing and you're like being strong with your faith, the more and more you read the Bible, the more and more you be able to quote scripture. Whether it's work, a skill, being a lawyer, selling houses, the more and more you do it, podcasting, the more and more you do it, the easier it gets. Yeah. And you find yourself. So it's like tying shoes, a game within a game. Just today, I'm working on loop, swoop, pull it through. And then I'll worry about bunny ears some other time. But today I want loop, swoop, pull it through.
Yeah. You know what? I like that you said about like the repetition, being that you're an athlete, right? You played sports your whole life, and in jiu-jitsu, one of the things that I feel everyone is, even myself when I first started, they're in a hurry to learn it all, right? And when you have the mindset of trying to learn it all, you become a jack of all trades, master of none. So it's like, let's say, for example, if I show you like, here's a defense on how to escape side control, right? And you go, okay, cool, right? But then that person, the very next day, you're learning something different. The next day, you're learning something different. You don't have enough time on that thing to get good. And I feel like jiu-jitsu, this is the trainer in me coming out now. It's compared to any other sport, the structure, oh, it's gonna sound bad. I think they're not consistent with structure. So let's say, for example, if you're a brand new basketball player, and I say, okay, great, we're gonna learn dribbling, right? And then once you learn how to dribble, we're gonna learn how to dribble and move. Oh, once you learn how to dribble and move, now we're gonna learn how to do a layup, right? Oh, now we're gonna learn how to do it with contact. There's this progression where every skill is being layered with another skill, right? But imagine if I was like at practice, I was like, today we're going to work on dribbling. Tomorrow we're working on shots. The next day we're going to work on cutting. The next day we're going to work on behind the back crossover. And you're trying to learn moves, but you don't learn movement. And I feel that because jiu-jitsu, it's caught steam, I would say a lot in probably the past 10 years. But I feel like it's still behind on the structure side of not spending enough time on something. So I remember when I used to wrestle, and playing basketball, when we would learn something, like I remember my 8th grade year not having a left hand. I didn't have a left hand. And I'm a point guard, so you gotta be ambidextrous, right? And the other team's like, make him go left, turnover. I got benched. And then my playing time was like taken away from me. They're like, oh, in pressure situations, if people make you go left, you don't know how to go left, right? Yeah. This is a true story. I would say maybe 2-3 months later was my 8th grade year. I'm in middle school. Yeah. You heard the other team say, make him go right. I'm going to show you what I did. Obviously, I went and worked on my left like crazy. All I did was left. I could only go left. I even taught myself how to shoot left-handed. And then during the warm-ups, I did everything as if I was a lefty. You know how you do your layup lines and all that? I would even shoot and my rhythm. And in the game, I made it sound like, I made it look like I didn't want to go right. When they're like, make him go right. And it was just because I spent a lot of time on that. And to this day, I'm ambidextrous with my left to right. But it's because I spent probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks religiously saying I'm going to focus on that. And I took that same mindset into jiu-jitsu. Every time someone catches me on something, I remember side control was like the first thing that was like death for me. And I was like, I'm going to put myself in side control with everybody. And then I remember some, the higher belts, they would say this to me. They would go, well, why? I'm going to get you there anyways. I was like, oh, I just need to learn. Like, I was like, no, I get that, but I need to get out of it. They're like, do you want me to hold you? I was like, no, I want you to do jiu-jitsu and start from there. and I would get sub. And then mount was another one. I hated it. I didn't know how to get people off me. Grab the arm thing wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
I was like, how the heck do I escape mount? I remember someone choked me out in a tournament. They mounted me and I turned my back the wrong way and they lapel choked me. And spending in jiu-jitsu, I feel like maybe because moves is from a marketing standpoint, I think it sells more. This is my own theory. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Learning new moves is more sexy, but it's not more effective. So you have to be disciplined in your own journey to be like, these are the areas I'm going to work on. And now, like, everybody knows my game. My game's pretty simple, but and I'm trying to say this in a humble way, but sometimes I will still do what I'm going to do, even if people know I'm going to do it. Kind of like when people are like, don't let him go left. I'm still going to go left because I've drilled it so much time. So I feel like the drilling, we talk about drillers or killers in jiu-jitsu, but everybody knows that, but I don't think people actually are intentional in their training. So like when I do jiu-jitsu now, it's very rare that my goal is to win. Like what you said, I'm always trying to win at something, the move of the day, the escape, the sweep. I try to specify my training as much as I can because that's what we do in any other sport, right?
Yeah.
Every sport does that. It's not a secret. If you want to get good at going left in basketball, you got to practice your left side. But in jiu-jitsu, I feel like we're a little all over the place. So then a year later, people are like, man, I'm not getting better. I'm like, yeah, well, what have you been working on? And then you ask people that question and they're like, they really don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just trying not to lose. I'm like, well, you didn't really answer the question. So I feel like you have to be intentional as a new white belt and be like, these are the specific things and I'm going to do it until it finally works. Right. So that's kind of like something that I wish I would have been more intentional about when I first started. And now that I'm doing that, I feel like I'm growing and I'm also not getting hurt as much as I used to. So
I think that's great. And going further, so it's from what I've been told by you guys is no matter what sport, even for anyone out there that plays any sport, it's always figure out the generals and the basics of the sport that's required and then growing upon that, right? For jiu-jitsu, at least the way my brain sees it, can be a little bit more complicated because it's not as simple as just saying I need a dribble. It's not as simple as just saying I need to shoot. There's a lot more movement into it that's required. Do you guys have anyone on social media or YouTube that does a great job of kind of going over the generals? Not someone who likes to show all the flashy stuff and what you can do, but for someone that's coming in and wants to kind of try and learn on their own time too, because not every time you can always get what you want out of the sessions. Do you guys have people you like to kind of look at? And
I don't know if more about social media. You can find anybody teaching moves on jiu-jitsu on YouTube or whatever. That is legit. But I think private training or privates in jiu-jitsu, what we call it, or private personal training that Henry offers is how you can get cross the T's and dot the I's. Because if you go to just a jiu-jitsu class, you're going to walk into a move and you'll be like, okay, but like, how do we get there?
yes.
And now you have to wait for the class to come all the way back around, throw the coach toes it again. But when you get private, you can be like, I have trouble with this. Can you help me with this? And he will spend time with you and help you with this. You go to Henry. Look at when I first started working out with Henry, I got it. I understood what he was doing. So I was 100% in. But if you've ever trained with Henry, sometimes you'll just go in there and you'll squeeze a tennis ball for an hour. And everybody else is getting after it. Duts and just crazy workouts. But Henry is about building the athlete from not missing a step, not going over, just not missing, like you're tying that tight. You want your athletes to be tighter than a gnat's butt, right? Yeah. So like, you're like, no, we're not going to, yeah, eventually we're going to do this. Eventually you're going to carry a sandbag up a hill for it. Eventually. But today, you got an injury. We're going to fix that before we get to that. And we're going to climb the ladder slowly because I'm creating you into I'm trying to get you to be as closest as you can be to the perfect version of an athlete for yourself. Yeah. So I feel like private training, developing slow, focusing on your stuff that you're not good at, or working on your injuries, and developing the athlete slow rather than like, I got a cool armbar to show you. You guys want to see this today? Not, maybe in class, but in private training, no. You can't do that, hombre, yet because this stinks. So we're going to focus on this for an hour. We're going to go left for 8 weeks until that shoulder's feeling better. And then once it's feeling better, that's literally, if you've ever trained with Henry, that's literally how he does it. He is slow with you, but it's not, and it may seem that like, oh man, I just want to do the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Why can't I just do what they're doing over
So do a
there?
power clean or something.
Why can't I just like, they're all cheering and doing twerk dances and they're going crazy over there. And I'm over here just, it's because he has passion for what he does and he wants you to be the best person of yourself. And he's not going to put you in a spot where you're doing something kind of okay. He wants you to be ready for when you get to the next level. So private personal training, get privates in jiu-jitsu. You want to get faster. You want to get stronger. You get every little muscle counts. Every little angle counts. Explosion. All that is slowly built over time. Cannot just get on the bench and put 315 up.
No.
You can if you arch your back and you don't do it technically right.
Yeah.
Like, that was form was horrible. I could squat this much. Yeah, your butt was going sideways to the left because you have a right knee injury and this, that, and this. You're just going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You got it up, but it wasn't pretty. Developing the perfect athlete and the perfect version of yourself as an athlete. The perfect athlete doesn't exist. I don't think so. I think every athlete, LeBron James, there's something wrong that he does not do perfect. Right? The perfect athlete cannot. And Michael Jordan had problems. You know what I mean? So I think but the perfect version of yourself as an athlete is important to build it slow.
I think the most important thing for, if you're a parent is to understand PEDs. You got to get all your kids on PEDs.
Dude?
Not those type of PEDs. If you're like steroids, performance enhancing details. Performance enhancing details. I know what you guys are thinking. Performance enhancing details. Details always matter. So I feel that everyone's always in a hurry when it comes to development to just get it as quickly as possible. Like if your kid, I was working with a good friend of mine. Sadly, he passed away, but he was a wide receiver at Washington State. Got in a motorcycle accident, passed away. But besides the fact, he ran a 4.44 and he was like 6'1", very fast guy, right? And this is one of the hard, he was trying to go to the NFL at the time. And he went to a combine, like one of those scouting combines. And he ran like a 4.49, and that's not good. Losing 5, that 0.05 is huge. And they didn't want to look at him. So he hit me up and he goes, hey man, can you help me out? I need to get faster. Now this is a guy who's a freak. His name is Daniel Lilienthal, and checks every box. I remember going to the beach. My family was friends with his family, and all his brothers looked the same. And I remember being like, man, I can't take my shirt off around these guys. These guys are like carved out of stone. So his work ethic was insane. So I said, tell me what you're doing. And, strength training, the conditioning, he checked every single box, but he got slower. Then I said, okay, I'm going to look at your joints, make sure everything's good, make sure everything's feeling good. I was like, is there anything in your body feel off? And he goes, well, my hamstrings are a little tight, nothing too crazy. I just kind of deal with it and it goes away. I was like, all right. I find out he lacked a little bit of internal rotation in his hip. I said, dude, your left hip or right hip, I can't remember which hip it was. One of his hips, he didn't have good mobility. It wasn't bad, but it was enough to cost him that.
Tenths of a second.
Yeah. So it was even tense. It was hundreds.
Yeah.
444 to 449. They were upset. They didn't want to look at him because he got slower by 4 hundredths of a second. So long story short, I said, let's just work on your hip. So he goes, all right. So we start working on his hip. A month later, does a combine 4.4, 5. Got his speed back. Guess how much speed training we did in that time? None. And I said, if you ignore proper warm up, proper mobility, and you ignore these nuanced things that most people only do those things when something goes bad. In his case, he wasn't really warming up. He's a freak athlete. I'm like, yeah, but at that level, it costs you. So I said, I think we talked about this first episode, understanding like layers, like build a human, then make them athletic, build the athlete, then the jiu-jitsu player, then the basketball player, then the football player. And if you don't understand layers, then you're going to be like, I don't know why my kid's plateaued. I don't know why he's not getting better. So we'll talk about this more. Next episode, we're actually going to go over, Coach David and myself, we're actually going to go into the details of how I use that pyramid of human athlete skill. And we're going to break it down and, we'll do a little storytelling. But if you want to get good at anything, PEDs, not steroids, but performance enhancing details. Details always matter. But you guys got anything else? Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Matt, for coming and hanging out with us.
Follow me at OSS Nation BJJ on Instagram. Not for kids. Okay? I know I was very good here. I was very good because I can be a chameleon. But if you follow my page on Instagram, I'm toilet bowl content. Okay, so not for kids. Follow me at the BJJ Balance Podcast. We're everywhere, all socials, anywhere, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, anywhere, BJJ Balance Podcast. This is a couple of dudes talking jiu-jitsu, kind of like this, but a little more not for
unfiltered.
Kids. For kids. And yeah, guys, I had a great time. It was awesome. I like what you guys are doing here.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for coming out.